All right. For those of you watching on Twitch after the stream is done, feel free to skip the VOD up to roughly the 5 to 10 minute marker and adjust as needed for the proper beginning. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, feel free to use the linked chapter markers to take you to the required sections. Thank you. All right. Hey, everybody. How are we doing? Hopefully you can all hear me. Hopefully everything sounds fine. That is the hope, at the very least. Oop, excuse me. Alrighty. Sorry, just got a couple of technical issues on my end. Bear with me. Wonderful. Alrighty. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Wanderer's Guide to Esterra. This is the podcast I started a couple of years ago, all about covering Concord LARP in all of its aspects, at least as much as I can. It has been quite a long time. The last time I was here live or in recorded form was prior to what was referred to back in the old days, which wasn't that long ago, it was only like 6 months, was Winter Summit 2024 for the Winds of the World in lead up to that, if memory serves, and then I kind of went radio silence after that. I will be doing a pre-recorded thing at some point later, whilst I do all my Winds coverage for this upcoming summit. Kind of going over why, because I think it's kind of interesting and it's something I think some people could relate to. It might be an interesting thing to go over. Beyond that, a lot of it, I've gone through all that, and again, it'll be a thing later. Now I'm in a much better headspace to tackle this, and in that, going forward, how these winds coverage are going to go for this upcoming Autumn Summit 2025 is going to go thusly. We're going to have about 8 episodes covering all this, the first 6 of which will be covering 3 winds articles at a time, essentially the standard weekly release schedule for the most part. And then the remaining 2 episodes there at the tail end are both going to have 4 articles in each, as just sort of an easy way to block things together, because it means at the very least I can keep the 6 particular war-related winds together, blocked in the first 2 parts, and then I can keep the last 4 winds articles blocked together as they are like general outside Concord information, or just related to like general stuff, like War Chamber, past voting, the results of confluxes, mainly the strategics. Well, actually, no, all of them really. At least the public ones, I suppose. Visitors to Passage, general information about the Treasury, taxation, that sort of thing, titles, and the news from across the sea. All that's going to get bundled in the last episode. All of these will either be streamed or recorded, one of the two. Realistically, if it's streamed, it's recorded, but that's neither here nor there. That is the plan going forward for these. In addition, differently to prior my prior coverages of the winds, because the Winds of the World are now given audio narration by Erica of the Concord team, we're actually going to listen to those rather than have me stumble through the reading of the winds. whilst it gives me or gave me an opportunity to kind of, do some reading and do that kind of thing and kind of have fun, do a little bit of extreme amateur voice acting, this is just going to be faster going forward. So essentially, the idea is I'm going to play each article or sub-article rather in each Winds, let it play out, and then if I have any particular opinions or things I want to point out or talk about of that particular one, I'll mention it, and then let it ring on. Basically, that is generally going to be the idea of all this. Really, beyond that, that's kind of the long and short. Other things to note: if you've not bought your Concord ticket yet, please do that. As we get closer and closer to Summit, the ticket prices are going up and up and up and up every month. So get your ticket for the lowest possible price. It will be much better for you. That I promise. So do that. Also make sure you submit your character. Also very, very important. If your character is not submitted, and you've got XP expenditure changes and all that, that would be tracked. If you're making a new character, or you're a new player and you have not submitted your character, you're not going to have a character pack, and you're going to want a character pack, because character packs are great. You get your money, you get stuff, sometimes you get extra stuff, sometimes you get spooky stuff. It all kind of depends, but you got to make sure you get your stuff. So please submit your characters, get that done, and get your tickets bought. Please also get that done. Very, very important. This summit stands, much like many, to be a wild time, and it's worth being there if you can. As the money that also goes into this goes into site and the general running of the LARP to make sure it all keeps running. Currently, the numbers are good. Relatively. Normally by this time they're a lot higher. So hence me kind of nudging, go get those tickets bought. Very important. I myself, as a perfect example, I bought my ticket. I bought it right at the beginning, but I have not submitted my character update yet, which I'll be doing probably tomorrow to make sure it's done. I might forget, but I will make sure that is done because, practice what you preach. So make sure to do that. All right. All right. So we're now going to pinwheel over into the first big O. That is to say, we're going to cover the first Winds release, and that being, I'll pull up the name. One moment. Oh, I just had it. To learn from Crises of Anguish, or Crises of Anguish, rather. This is the Boar in Mukarem. This one, from memory, has 3 sub-articles. We're going to go through all 4. We're going to let it ride and go from there. Also, bear with me. This is the first time doing things this particular way, so things are going to be a little bit janky. I'm going to do my best to leave timestamps for the YouTube watchers later, so you can skip to whatever you need to. I'll try and get that done. If I can't get it in the description proper, it'll be in I'll do a pinned comment at the top. As a note, for you guys watching this now, or if you're watching the VOD, if you're watching the VOD a little later, I will be doing the YouTube upload tomorrow. That is to say Sunday after release. So let's go ahead and get things going. So first of all, pause this. Second of all, right. So, okay. We begin with learning from the Crises of Anguish. If there's any audio issues for your watching and or listening, just let me know and I'll try and get that sorted as quickly as possible. Let us begin.
To learn from Crises of Anguish, War in Mukarem. Mukarem has seen more than its fair share of violence and would-be conquest since the inception of the Concord, with no perpetrator more consistent than the Imperial Prince of the Western Empire, the Trade Prince of the Trade Principality of Aprivano, the Chosen of the Magistrate, Majid Del Majid. The last time that the forces of the Trade Prince stepped blooded boots into Nazafeza, they razed the city, destroying dwellings, docks, and denizens with the same vermeiled vehemence. The last time that he had his bejeweled hands on Concordian heroes, they were almost killed for spheres that hold no place in his heart, justified by perceived slights and ill-maintained friendships. In the past, Majid Del Majid has fought the Concord with blazing rage and blistering scorn, lighting fires for the suffering they bring. But this time is different. This time, the Imperial Prince means to stand by his self-given title, calm and collected in his conquest. This time, he will not burn Mukarem, but begin to take it as his own.
Ooh. So, Majid's got a bit of an ego, huh? like a real ego. Oh boy. So yeah, in short, Majid's dropping the hammer. We kind of knew this was coming. Realistically, there was a big Trade Principality of Aprivano update on the wiki at some point a while ago that kind of gave a good breakdown of what we were kind of going to be dealing with. Actually, I can't remember if it was an update to the Trade Principality as a whole, or if it was an update in one of the Winds of the World. My gut says maybe both. It's been a while since I've had a look. Probably should have done in, research for this, but who researches for this sort of thing? Not me. Not me. No, sir. But yeah, Majid's beginning the push. The real big push. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot to be said for this Winds as a whole, but this entry as a whole is a good harbinger for what's coming after this. I'm going to quickly do myself a favor and just... Sorry, I'm just going to pull the Winds listing on the wiki up on a different thing just so I have it. Yeah, thoughts. Do we have any thoughts in chat? Absolutely throw them out. I am. Yeah, it's brutal. It is interesting the name change. Very interesting in terms of the name change shown. The fact that he is Del Majid. Because in the past it was Majid al-Majid. Now it's Majid Del Majid. For those that are unaware of the Andashi custom, the Del in this particular instance for Andashi usually means devoted to. So, for example, you would have, usually for priests, a lot of the time, you would have Rizil Del Panoply, for example. So that's very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. It even lists itself like this taking is going to be very different. So it's interesting to see why the change. It went from an iron fist to now a more methodical approach, which is very interesting. But hey, perhaps perhaps the future ones will shed a little bit more light on why. I've only gone over this Winds a few times myself, mainly planning for possibilities and outcomes. But it may be in going through all this. Who knows? Yeah, let's now, I think, move on to the first sub-article of To Learn from Crises of Anguish, the war in Mukarem, to Going to War, Seeking to Win. The first of 3 sub-articles to do with this particular Winds.
Going to war, seeking to win. As the Concord has done many times before, soldiers from far-off realms found themselves stationed on the far western coast of Andash for the summer. They were treated to breathtaking sunsets over a tranquil sea, blistering days beneath an unyielding sun, and far more warfare than they could stomach. The charade of peace talks and the hollow exchange of bribes from empty coffers could only last so long. As summer unfolded, the time for bloodshed arrived. No longer the skirmishes of stray bandits or wayward jackals. This was a war of over 30,000 souls, clashing with daggers drawn and death sought in pursuit of treasures. Far out at sea, beyond the reach of anchors, the people's gift prepared to strike. Admiral Brule Dupont, running his fleet with the chaotic camaraderie of a bawdy tavern, kept morale high and his sailors eager to have a go at him. Confident in his strategy, Dupont planned to exploit the discord among his enemies, tearing Karim Del Majid's fleet apart sail by sail. By the time he was done, her proud vessels would be nothing more than tattered pennants and forgotten coin purses lost to the depths. In the quiet streets of Nazafeza, the air was heavy with unease. The people of this port town knew the cost of conflict all too well. They had seen their city crumble under the onslaught of the war jackal just a year ago. They had watched their neighbours starve and die on the beaches, waiting for salvation. Now they prepared for another storm. Concordian soldiers encamped on the outskirts of town shared this grim understanding. These were the valley's own, sunburned and weary, who had fought house to house to reclaim Nazafeza. Now the tables had turned. The valley folk stood ready to defend this distant town with its alien architecture, scarred inhabitants, and hollowed homes. Yet amidst the foreign sands, a piece of the valley endured. Tucked off the main avenue lay a courtyard adorned with valley folk shields, a flower bed of steel blades planted in the earth, and an archstone monument inscribed with over 900 names. This shrine honoured the own who had fallen when they last fought to hold Nazafeza. Fragile flowers grew among the blades, and strips of cloth tied to the hilts bore witness to the gratitude of the Andashi people. Though this land did not celebrate their dead, it would not forget their sacrifice. But there was little time for mourning in these solemn halls. The war followed the Trade Principality's timeline, and it moved swiftly. 3 formidable forces opposed the Concord. To the north of Nazafeza, a disciplined army, trained in the Artabazani style, but composed mostly of conscripts masquerading as legionnaires, waited for General Eriksson and his valley folk to march through 2 days of scorching desert to meet them. Meanwhile, 5,000 blooded tribesfolk roamed the borderlands, raiding Tadrabar, striking the Salt Road, and fainting at Nazafeza repeatedly. The Valley's own find themselves stretched thin, fighting a battle hundreds of miles long as they held the Salt Road, ensuring that supplies and trade could still reach Mukarem. The forces that remained in Nazafeza rested when they could, but spent much of their time shadowing Quest of Acandius and his foe Ardabazani army to the north. Then came the disaster the Concordians had feared. Nearly 100 Aprivanian ships, led by Karine Del Majid herself, sailed into Big Bev's Bay, the trade harbour so cherished by Concordian heroes of Andash. Even as the People's Gift prepared its counterattack on the horizon, the Trade Principality's forces closed in on Nazafeza from 3 sides. Exhausted and outnumbered, the Valley's own sharpened their axes and prayed to their gods as the enemy descended. Game information. The following forces saw battle over the summer along the Salt Road in Nazafeza. The Valley's own, supported by 950 mercenaries, commanded by Godric Eriksson, and the People's Gift, commanded by Brule Dupont. These 2 Concordian forces faced off against 2 Trade Principality armies and a fleet intent on taking the Salt Road territory. Concordian characters who want to roleplay having been present at the conflict can tell stories of a large Trade Principality force arrayed on multiple fronts and ready for battle. The conflict is widespread and varied, with small skirmishes through to field battles. The enemy is dedicated, wily, and bloodthirsty. But they are human. The Principality forces bleed, retreat, and die somewhat easier than Concord's other enemies.
Oh, yep. So big push from the sea, big push on land. Mukarem not great. I love the monument to the fallen. The monument to the fallen is really sweet. Like a lot of growth around it, which means a lot of water was invested into it. For those that are unaware, to the Andashi people, like, water's a very important thing, especially clean water. Like, clean drinking water is like very sacred, because when you're living in a desert, a water is literally the thing that will stop you from dying, more often than not. So the fact that clearly an amount of water has been given to that area to have it grow, I would say that's kind of the vibe I get from it, is super nice. I like that. The monument's really nice. The push is brutal. Very brutal. But that, yeah. I think there's a chance that we kind of guessed that something like this was probably coming. At least given the vibe of the strategic conflux at the prior summit, being what it was, especially with the magistrate taking the field. Yeah, this is not great. It's going to get better and worse when we hit these next 2 sub-articles. That's for sure. But as the tail end, they are human, they bleed, they retreat. and they die easier than the other forces. The problem is that there's a lot of them. Yep, there's a lot of them. So, we'll go into the next one. The next one is certainly interesting, entitled When the Burning Sky is Done. This is more the update of kind of how the fight went. So you could think of the previous one, that being going to war seeking to win, is the very much a setup. And then When the Burning Sky is Done is kind of the results to a degree. And then sort of the third article, in Strangled by the Weight of Home, is the aftermath, if that makes sense. So let's go into the middle of this one and see how things fared.
When the Burning Sky is Done. Brulé Dupont's strategy to tear Karine El-Majid's ships apart plank by bloody plank and sail by cursed sail was not an ill-informed one. Examining the disparate individuals that made up Majid's forces certainly suggested that to pick them apart would be a sound choice, to search for a crack in their supposed unity and pick at it, not unlike a child picking at an almost healed scab until it became a bleeding wound. Perhaps, then, this strategy would have worked on Questor Vacandius in all of his golden Ardabazani pride. Perhaps he would have slunk back to fight for the only empire his heart belongs to. Or perhaps it would have worked on Bereaver al-Shakhtar el-Basilisk in all of her bloody splendour. Perhaps she would have turned her fervour against the trade prince and let the sands run red with the blood of his men. It was unfortunate, then, that this strategy did not work on Karine Del-Majid El-Majid, blood of the trade prince, a woman both of and devoted to her father. For, when the fine Lorone ships crashed against the bronze-bladed galleys of Aprivano, there was no pride to weaponize, and no wound to pick. Karine Del-Majid El-Majid was yet to earn her own pride, to fight her own battle, or to owe the trade prince. She was not sailing this fleet for money that could be offered elsewhere, or as the terms of trade near completion. Karine was waging war with her father's fleet against her father's enemies, to prove that she could do so. And, as any good commander knows, victory is not about winning the battles, but living to win the war. As sailors slit the throats of skin-keepers, and pirates were pierced by Mavaran-made blades, Majid's third daughter stood tall and strong on the waves. She did not need to be victorious, to drown those already conquered in foreign oceans where they would never be remembered, and to raise their pitiful port to the ground. She simply needed to endure until the other forces under her father's control repaid his promise to the Concord, to bring them death. The hunters of the Bloodwind and the forces of Questor Vacandius, for their part, were more than willing to uphold this promise. As the sunburnt and scorched of the valley's own attempted to hold their ever-thinning line, those fighting at Majid's behest eroded the Concordian forces like a surging river against its weakening banks. Those of and supporting the valley's own fought hard, fought well, and fought tirelessly. But there is only so much fighting that can be done when the front line shrinks with each circulation. A Farseer, strangled by an al-Shakti with their own bands of fate. A Huskarl's banner cloak, stained red from the swing of a corsair's blade. A graver's skull caved in, never to be carried by their brethren. After the arrival of Karine Del-Majid El-Majid's fleet, there was no great surge of enemies, no colossal crushing wave of foes that drowned the Concordians in seas of blood. Instead, it was a slow, unerring push, as step by step, the valley's own were forced back and back and back, smaller and smaller, until they were no longer in front of the salt road, but behind it. Until they were no longer protecting Nazafeza and Tadrabar, but praying that the people would be safe, now that they were lost. Game information. The Concord has been defeated in the Salt Road territory, losing control of it to the Trade Principality of Aprivanu. The casualties suffered by the Valley Zone are immense, totaling 2,400 dead. While this is 800 fewer than those suffered by the Principality forces, it is a crushing blow for the Valley folk. Such is the nature of the defeat, that there is no time for burials or reclamation of banners. Many legacies lay buried by desert sand, or picked clean by Principality scavengers. The following military investments have been damaged: Ashan el Mai, Bevides el Bevan, Thorin, Leif Eord of Heinsgraaf, Thane of Brackenlow, and Godric Eriksson. Such is the brutality of the defeat that some of these characters may also have traumatic wounds in their character packs. The Valley Zone has retreated to Tanabar South. There will be decisions relating to the defeat on the Salt Road for the General of the Valley Zone and the Senator of Mukarem.
Yeah. So, like I said, big push. So thoughts I had from this one in particular, that indicated something very clearly to me. It's something, when talks have been had on Discord chats and in-person chats and whatever, is Majid's daughter is very dangerous, in my opinion, as a leader, as a commander. She's willing to sacrifice forces and to stay on task. She's fighting with a lot of intelligence here. It's also a reality that, she knows we're more or less outnumbered, pretty much. As by example, is that she took a territory, not a region, just a territory. It's still bad, rather so. But the reality here is the Valley Zone has been hit hard, very, very hard. And unless we can get, again, and this is speculation and opinion from an out of character perspective here, it looks like there needs to be some support thrown in there, because this is a hell of a push that's been done here, and now dealing with a very, very dangerous commander. We faced very dangerous leaders before, but they've usually been, some kind of creature, undead or even Ilsevere, as it were, or the likes of the Zerkatal, and various others besides. But this is a very human, very mortal foe that's being very, very careful and is being very methodical with this approach, especially the fact of going in with a level of confidence of, I don't care. I don't care if I lose forces. I have more coming, right? That's the concern here, is that there are more coming. That part cannot be, I gotta make that clear. This is just the start. There's going to be more. Likely a lot more. So that's something we really need to really keep in mind here, is this is a commander that is not just willing to throw away forces, but it's willing to throw away forces if they're not needed or doesn't matter, and then by work with that level of confidence, which is alarming, given the amount of war fronts we already have availing us right now. So now we're going to go over to the sort of the aftermath of this particular campaign glimpse in the War of Mukarem. And once done here, we'll head over to the situation in the tribe lands of Andash, and then of course, wrap up with the situation in Makante Terra. So, let's get to it.
Strangled by the weight of home. The people of Andash are no strangers to war and loss. To live in this harsh world is to accept a great risk, knowing that your entire way of life could be lost in the blink of an eye. It would be false to claim that such a thing is unique to Andash, yet who better to reinforce this grim belief than the gold-driven enemy of the trade principality of Aprivano? An enemy all too content to reave anything and everything, all in the name of one man, all in the service of one prince. Majid del Majid, trade prince of Aprivano, ruler of the Western Empire, a name spoken through gritted teeth and with pointed venom, the root cause of the pain and suffering of the people of Nazafeza, Tadrubar, and Greater Mukarem. The true claimant of the oppressive occupation of Mukarem's greatest settlements, yet the very same man who ordered their destruction a few seasons prior. There would be few Andashi whose eyes would not turn steely at the mention of his name, and fewer still unwilling to turn to violence should he appear before them. Yet such a thing would remain a wishful daydream, as the boots that pressed down on the throat of Mukarem were worn by bandits, mercenaries, and loyalists of Aprivano, not by the prince himself. It would be the blooded warriors of Al-Shakti that would try to turn Tadrubar into nothing more than a simple outpost, a place to return to between raids. It would be conscripts and marines that tried to turn Nazafeza into a place of Aprivanian loyalty, paving the way for future expansion. The principality would not attempt to take coin and goods from Andash, but the very essence of life from its people. A people who would now have to live side by side with an enemy, barely able to flee or fight back, for fear of their very lives. Forced to make a choice between risking it all once more, or instead choosing to support those that would now lay claim to their homes. A wordless question asked by their invading occupants, with a wordless answer and overwhelming reply. The people of Mukarem would persevere. There would be no large-scale defection, nor risky rebellion that would throw away countless lives. Instead, there would be harsh glares from behind boarded windows, and harsher words behind turned backs. The people would wait, patiently and hopefully, for the Concord in which they placed their trust to save them from an expectant and forceful foe. They have done so once before, and there would be faith that they would do so again. Such intent would be made clear to not just those that worry for the people of Mukarem, but to the enemy that has invaded it. For only so long can the principality accept steely stares and muttered insults. For only so long can a reluctant occupancy be allowed where loyalty is required. The future of Nazafeza and Tadrubar lays not just in the hands of its people and the Greater Concord, but in the whims of the one who clutches them in his golden fist. Game information. The people of Nazafeza and Tadrubar live under the invading occupation of Aprivanian forces, many choosing to keep in their homes, and live as best as possible rather than choosing to flee or fight back. While theft, assault, and other crimes against the people of Mukarem are rampant in the early weeks, it is clear that the Principality are intending to retain the settlements. Compared to the actions of Principality forces a few seasons ago, Nazafeza and its infrastructure remain primarily undamaged. Big Bev's Bay stands strong and in good function, though now catering to Aprivanian ships rather than Concordian, and many other critical buildings appear in fact bolstered and cared for by the invading force, rather than sacked and destroyed. The rest of Mukarem, those beyond the Salt Road and its territory, appear to match the response of Nazafeza and Tadrubar's citizens. Such actions of war, which would normally have severe adverse effects on a region's taxation, appear to be surprisingly mitigated, though there is no telling how long such things could last.
Yep. So pretty much Nasafeza and that section of Grem there we go. The Nasafeza people are just sitting and waiting. I'm not gonna lie. It does kind of make my stomach squirm a little bit thinking about the idea of, sitting under occupation of a foreign invading force, especially one that you really have grown to hate, and essentially be sitting under an axe head, basically. That's the reality we're really looking at right now. At least for the people of Nasafeza and beyond in Mukarem for the land taken. The fact that the taxation isn't going to be heavily affected is interesting, although I suppose they're not, trying to destroy infrastructure and such. It's also the case that they're looking to have, and when I say they, I mean the invading forces of the Trade Principality, are looking to, they're not looking to burn the road and leave the scorched earth behind them. This isn't just death. This is death in a physical sense, in a health sense. This is death in a conceptual sense. This is the Concord as it is will die, it would seem. Which is, it's definitely dangerous. It's much more personal in a way, because it isn't just, kill the body, and that's it. This is what you are will fall as well. Not just, the body, but the mind, the memory. This part is not as bad as is initially thought, but in my opinion, in what came in the pre-conflict, the conflict itself, makes this seem not as bad as it is, but I definitely think it is as bad as it is. Now, another thing to consider, relating to investments that are based in that part of Mukarem, there is going to be information about those investments and how all that is functioning and all that later in the winds. Sort of as things go, we'll get information about how all that's going to go down later in the winds. And when I say later, I mean probably a good while later. It's one of those just wait and see scenarios, at least from what I have seen scuttlebutt around. So, we'll get an answer. I am one of those people. I've got a naval investment based in the Bay of Nasafeza, so I'm definitely one of these people. Although for my downtime, I am somewhere else at the moment, but my investment is there. So that's something to consider. If you have an investment there, there will be, if your investment is in Mukarem and is in any of the territories that were taken by the Trade Principality's forces, there will be information about that coming, I would say. So something to consider. This is a hell of a wins to get first off the bat. Overall, this is bad. This is a lot of really, really bad. Not impossible to push back against. I don't think so, anyway. But I am of the mind shown is, from what is shown, we're dealing with a much more calculated force. We're dealing with a much more ambitious force that isn't just trying to oppose us from a perspective of like religious understanding or, you know, in a way like philosophical understanding, as it were. It's not quite the correct term for it, but you get the idea, right? Like we're not dealing with undead. We're not dealing with shamanistic cultists. We're not dealing with, you know, a hive mind enemy. That sort of thing. We're dealing with sort of an expansionist empire, like trade empire, mercantile kind of empire. It's a very different force, and one that might be a little easier to predict as a result, because it's something easier to understand potentially. But that is for the war commanders to be concerned too. Although definitely, again, if your character would be of the mind and have ideas related to all this, you know, voice your ideas, voice your opinions, do what your character would do. I will always encourage that. But overall, that is the situation in Mukarem as it stands at this time of stream/recording. Now, we're going to head over to the next Winds article. As released. That being I can pull it up. Unmoved by the Whispers of Crows. Excuse me. This one also has 3 sub-articles as a part of it. That of Hook, Line and Sinker, to the towns, to the towns where there was plenty, and until I wake, I dine on old encounters. I like that last one. Both the second and third of these sub-articles, I like the title at the very least. They're really, really nice. Yeah, something to be said. Always said it, always going to. Love the writing of the Winds. Always enjoy it. So, pause that. And let's head into the next Winds situation in the Andashi tribe lands.
Unmoved by the whispers of crows. War in the tribelands. While a bandit turned warlord steals from Concordian merchants and baggage trains, a warlord turned cultist masses in the desert. Steal for gold and steal for a just cause pass each other in the night, both eager to be wet with the blood of fallen Concordians. There is no love lost between these foes, but there is a greater opportunity afoot. The people of Andash joined the Concord to reclaim the glory lost to the sands, and have instead found themselves cast as the bulwark against raiders and marauders alike. There was a time when janissaries were a valued export, but as the land of sun and moon readies itself for another winter campaigning season, it seems that the children of Andash will be needed at home. The wars in Andash will not wait.
What an ominous statement. The wars in Andash will not wait. And I could not agree more. Oh boy. So many gut punches. So many gut punch lines. Gut punch situations. Of course, you know, like as a currently playing an Andashi character, of course these hit home for me quite a bit. As of course it would. Concordian patriotism being what it is, and Romic patriotism being what it is, of course. But I'm very pleased. I will say, as I think it's fair to say, that the evolution of the writing for the Winds from the beginning to now is noticeable and very, very good. Overall, the team absolutely knocking it out of the park. I'm very, very happy and continue to be very, very happy with the Winds every single time. Though it is a point that these are not in-character, in-game documents. These are just news sort of generally going across the Concord, and your character may be as informed as much or as little as you think they would be. I enjoy going through all the Winds because I like getting all the information, like getting all the lore, the tasty lore. Many a time I've said I am akin to a parasitic amoeba that just absorbs all the lore, because that's what I do. But it's also because I love it so much. I enjoy it so much. I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. And I likely always will. But as it stands, things are getting big. Things are getting dangerous. And I have read ahead, so I know what's coming in all of these Winds. These first three. I don't know about the others, as the others have not been released yet. So, to be clear on that. So let's go into the beginning situation, in the current situation of the war in the Triplans.
Line and sinker. The supply carts for the Desert Whisperers were light things, with 2 wheels intended to be pulled by 2 labourers, if a good oxen could not be found. They were well designed to handle the scrubby paths of the true wilds and the crescent, even if they could not conquer the dunes of the Tanabar Sea. They were well built, and perfectly suited to resupply the fast-moving warfare that the Whisperers specialised in. This made their absence all the more keenly felt. Replacing them were heavier, double-axle wagons from Lorraine. Originally intended as transports for wine casks and other goods from the Madre Campo, they were heavy-set and well braced against the ruts and bumps of the roads that crisscrossed Lorraine. While they carried a great bounty of supplies, they often found themselves bogged and lost in the sands and stone of Andash's rugged terrain. This made their absence frustrating, but hardly unsurprising. Now, they were reduced to walking supplies overland from Civicello. The Red Lady and the other officers of the army, tasked with defending the Andashi heartland, had to engage and defeat market prices exacerbated by the drought in Obregon. They skirmished with local gangs of labourers, asking for higher and higher wages to account for the risks. They besieged the civil service to release their purse strings. Each battle was an embarrassment for the general, as she had been here before. She had watched as the war jackal had brought this same tactic to the fore a year prior against her predecessor. There were those voices in the war chamber that had worried about this outcome. Going to the Senate hat in hand was hardly a powerful stance for the Concord's military leaders. But the risk of a powerful flank attack into Obregon was too dangerous to be ignored. And now she was spending her evenings controlling her steadily diminishing supplies. Spending her morning reading reports of more stolen wagons. Spending her days screaming into the canyons of her homeland, praying for Arcadian to bring her a battle. But the spheres and the canyons were silent, save for the distant laughter of enemy greed. Last season saw the Concord field the Desert Whisperers army in Tanabar East, part of the Tribelands, to defend against a possible attack by Trade Principality forces. Unfortunately, the blockade runner order from the war jackal Louis L. Corvarius was not a deadly flanking strike. Instead, it was a drain on Concordian supplies as enemy forces refused open battle and instead struck out at the logistics and mercantile efforts of the region. The Desert Whisperers have had their upkeep for the last season doubled, as attempts to assault the Warjackal have been fruitless. Missing supplies plague the army, and it has also gained the undersupplied status. This status will fade as new supplies are made available after the next season. The Desert Whisperers have not recovered casualties this season, as rushing up and down the desert has left them weary and spent. For his part, Louis Alcovarius has suffered light casualties against Concordian counterattacks and police actions. There will be decisions regarding these events for the General of the Desert Whisperers.
These bloody blockade strikes are absolutely backbreaking. they keep being absolutely backbreaking. Now we've got the Desert Whisperers have been undersupplied. Just, oh boy. Obviously, the undersupplied status we will learn what this means later, as there is a shift in how the war game is going to be played. It is currently being tested and gone over very thoroughly by the team, with willing participants and volunteers to ensure it is going to be a change for the better. But oh boy. And again, as a note, with the the unsupplied, or the that particular status fading after the coming season, so it means we'll have the upcoming summit. We'll then have the season between that and the spring summit in September, near the end of the year of this year. And it's after that in between time of the upcoming summit and the summit at the end of this year. After that is when that status will be gone, right? So it's not we come to this summit and it's gone. It's this coming summit. After that, beginning of next summit is when that will be gone. And when I say next summit, I mean the summit in September, the spring summit. Because yes, it is no longer winter and summer, it is now autumn and spring. That's something to keep in mind. Oh yeah, the Desert Whisperers got kind of hit quite hard. Not great. So, not good. No, not good. Not a good kickoff. It does give us an idea of what the Warjackal is up to. Kind of doing at least what I figured would be done. This is honestly blockading the Desert Whisperers. Was honestly just a really good move. If I'm being honest, looking at the war as a whole, that was just a very smart move, because all it means is a lot of supplies coming in for an army. They may have to deal with those supplies they now don't have to deal with, which means if the Warjackal does decide to do a push, they're going to be in a much better position to do that push and win. That seems to be the method and the way that Jackal does things is undersupply forces, get their numbers reduced, or get them in a disadvantaged position and then hit them, or set them up in a sort of a 1-2 punch of set them up for another force to hit them. Absolutely backbreaking. And anyone that knows Warhammer 40k enough, especially with the Ultramarines and Rebute Gilliman, you know the best way to win a war is to have good logistics. So if you cut off your enemy's logistics and supplies, they're kind of scuppered. So this is brutal. With the general screaming into the desert in present to Arcadian to bring a fight is kind of a funny mental image. I know it's I'm kind of making fun a little bit. I don't mean to, but it does make me think of like the whole the old man yells at clouds meme sort of thing. A little bit. Like not quite, but like you kind of get what I'm saying. Yeah. Continuing efforts of the Trade Principality of Upper Vono. Absolutely slamming hard here. Yeah. But that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. Let's now roll over into the second of three of To the Towns Where There Was Plenty. Yeah.
To the towns where there was plenty. The Tanabar Sea is a difficult place to live, never mind to thrive. Even on the mildest of days, when the sun is high in the sky, it is unbearably hot and bright, leading to burnt cheeks and stinging eyes. Even on the most temperate of nights, when the moon is overhead, it is gelid and desolate, leading to frost-bitten noses and spasmodic shivering sleep. Yet people still travel to this inhospitable land, despite its apathy for the condition of the living, in the hopes of uncovering the secrets of the dead. Each rasping gust of wind that skates over the dunes has the possibility of uncovering a remnant of Grandandash thought lost to time. For Tamadar al-Mukhtar, the brutality of the Tanabar Sea was a beast worth battling with, if it meant that some part of her lost culture could be found. What were nights of fitful, freezing sleep when compared to days of discovery and reclamation? And after nearly 3 years, she had done it. She had found another ruin. Not nearly to the scale of Kadiri. There were seemingly no winding passages deep below the sands, needing to be uncovered by heroes of the Concord. But there were carvings and mosaics of what could be old magic, remnants of parts of culture thought lost here, in the stone, where they could be brought back to life. She had already penned a letter to her senator, with careful illustrations and descriptions of what herself and her crew had found, hopeful that the history of her ancestors may be ready, at last, to come to light. She would leave in the morning to deliver it to Obregon herself. When she awoke, it was to more movement than the sight had seen in some time. Her crew had found something else. Clambering out from her tent to join her fellow delvers, crouched around the entrance of the site, she adjusted her eyes to look at the objects in hand. "Arrows?" she stated, though it came out more questioningly than was intended. "We've found no other indication that any kind of battle occurred here. Did the sand uncover them this morning? Or during the night?" She held out her hand to her second, moving to grab the arrow to look at its head for any marks or distinguishing features. The feathers that had made up the fletching clearly did not survive their journey under the sands. As she stood, however, she did not have to take it in hand. The arrow that shot through the neck of the delver next to her still retained its green and yellow fletching, splattered with blood, as it was. Tamadar did not have time to turn, to react to the gurgling scream and the scarlet blood that erupted from her friend's punctured throat before he fell, along with the others around her. By the time she did turn to face their attackers, shaking hand reaching for the blade on her hip, she wished that she hadn't. She wished that she couldn't hear her crew, her friends, bleeding out in agony upon stones that should have brought life to things long dead. She wished that they had all left the day before, even if they had not saved as much of the site, if it meant that they could live. She wished that the figure in front of her, flanked by eagles, wasn't one that she recognized from stories told in hushed, frightened voices. The eagles moved silently on the sands, crossing the site to scrutinize the precious mosaics and priceless carvings, now splattered sanguine. Sister Oak, bedecked in her thunder oak armor and giant ram's horns, took a step closer. She gestured southward with her club. Out in the distance, the blurred shape on the horizon shifted and began to move as Oak's army continued their march, too distant to be heard. The weak cries of the figures on the floor eased into quiet as their life soaked into the sand and stone and, except for Tamado's sharp breaths. All was still. Oak's eyes scanned Tamado, landing on the delver's belt wrapped around her waist, then surveyed the rest of the scene, pausing briefly on the mosaics of the city of spires. A step closer. But please, I won't try to stop you. Another step. We just wanted to dig. We've lost so much. Another step. Please, we need to. It's for our families, our ancestors. Another step. Now, only a few paces apart, Oak's face was clear, even through Tamado's tear-filled vision. She wished that she didn't recognize the sentiment present in the Zekatal's eyes. Shadows caused by months and months of interrupted sleep, and a grief caused by the loss of something greater than the self. Sister Oak nodded, and for a moment there was hope. Then the blade of the eagle behind her slid through her ribs, and she could only gasp quietly as the others began smashing the carvings around her. Her body fell, and she clutched her torso, unable to stop the sticky blood leaking through her fingers like spilled ink. She watched through blurred vision as her sight, her hope, was crushed under Zekatal clubs. Then her vision was overtaken by a face filled with both mourning and conviction in equal measure. We need to, for hours, Sister Oak said, no louder than a whisper, raising her club. Then the world was no more. Game information. Sister Oak has marched an army into Tanabar South. It is unclear if her intentions are bloody vengeance or the Conqueror's axe. Regardless of her hopes, it is the first time that a Zekatal army has crossed the borders of the Concord in some time. The War Chamber will have to respond.
Oh. Yep. That is the second time that there has been a gut punch, an emotional gut punch like that, for a war situation in the Tribelands, at least for me. The first one was the dying Bordavarian squire during the prior conflict with the Fool's Gold Fortress and the Rivers of Blood a while back. Oh boy. Real heavy stuff. Oh, I see. The thing is, I find it hard to say anything because I'm reeling from how brutal this is and how personal. Because this is another marking of we're seeing something more interesting with Sister Oak now. There is more here. You know, she's not just a warmongering brute. Not necessarily. There's potentially something more here. Definitely something more. The question is what? And obviously this poses the question. Why? Yeah. Also, the fact that the game information is simply, you know, this is, you know, an army has marched in. It's been a while. Tetrabar South, the War Chamber will need to respond. Yep. I don't got too much more to say because we're going to get a little more to do with this in the next one. So let's yeah, let's not dilly-dally, shall we? Let's just go into the next one. And then we'll get into some potential other stuff, as it were.
Until I wake, I dine on old encounters. She is coming. The thunderous sound of Abkala's waterfalls, even as distant as they were, nearly drowned out the simple statement. Spoken in hushed tones and furtive glances, almost as if she could hear them and see them even now. There was fear in these words, a fright based on committed action and known intent. She has waited too long. Now she moves to lift their burden. A different voice, melodious and rhythmic, no stranger to the eyes and ears of a crowd. The tale to be told is one of horrific loss, a cause to action, and a call to arms for a people oh so brutalized. Still, a tale of villainy in short few words, betrayed by the one who would tell it. Look to the west and she will show. Watch for those that grasp the skies, and know that she will bring them low. The final voice, clear and concise, no words to be wasted and no time to spare. Words as cryptic as they are meaningful, their very existence the result of a fair trade and a hard decision made. There would be consequence in ways that can only be assumed and foretold. There would be suffering at the hands of one, or perhaps another. There would be vengeance. It would not be the words of scouts and travelling nomads that would warn the people of Abkala about the coming Zekatal army. It would not be the cautions of Concordians that would first tell of Sister Oak and her intent. No, it would not be the citizens of Andash as it stands who step forth to speak, but those who still claim a place in its past. The lost clans of Villacrez, those of the Peaks, Old Seas, and Hawk, would each find their way once again to Abkala to tell of impending doom. They would speak of her in cryptic words, seemingly guilty, but nonetheless warning those that accepted them of what is to come. They would speak of how they must repay kindness with kindness, a debt owed and now paid. They would speak, morosely and in roundabout ways, of Sister Oak and how she fights. They would warn, perhaps too late. There would be nothing the people of Abkala could do but watch from a distance as Zekatal crossed the border of Villacrez. They could do nothing but send letters and reports to those in power as Oak marches south, raiding whatever fell in her path. They could do little but be thankful that Abkala remains as yet untouched, saved from a repeat massacre of years past. Oak marches with glaring intent, a goal to be realised and a duty to be fulfilled. The words of the few from Villacrez answer some questions, but as always, give rise to many more. Game information. In response to their allowance to continue trading within Abkala, the lost clans of Villacrez warn the Andashi people of Sister Oak's invasion into the tribe lands, though perhaps one step too late. While information on Oak herself is given quietly and cryptically, it is nonetheless given freely to the people of Abkala, a great and unexpected boon for the coming military season. The people of the Lost Clans have made the following trait of Sister Oak's army available to the Concord. It is not her army's only trait. Warlord of the Zekatal. Effect: plus 15% casualties inflicted, plus 500 claim, when campaigning in territories that include schools of magic or monasteries. There will be decisions and information regarding the lost clans of Villacrez for the Shepherd of the Reeds.
Yep. So now we have, the first look proper at what, kind of how armies may look by the time all is said and done, and the the war chamber testing for things is done. Obviously, there is a little extra bit at the tail end of this one, saying these numbers and stats and bonuses are can be or may yet be changed before all is said and done. As things are updated and worked on and such, right? Something to keep in mind. But yeah. Yeah. This army's great at fighting nerds, basically. Nerds and priests. And yeah, they're nice to see that Shepherd of the Reed's position, sorry. I'm always going to say Reeves or Reeds when I'm not supposed to, we have the Reeves with a V council for Iron Valley, and now Shepherd of the Reeds with a D, or Andash is going to get confused to a degree. Probably a little bit, but is what it is. Yeah, I was very happy to see a look at what sort of these bonuses can look like in a more tangible sense here. It's quite cool. I quite like this change. I've heard a lot of the stuff that was done in the first beta test, and I was very pleased at a lot of the things I heard. And have since seen with a little PDF released as part of the beta testing and all that for everyone volunteering to be involved and such. It's quite interesting to see. Obviously, it's not finalized as things are getting tested and such, but it's really, really cool to see these tangible traits come through, making things a little more interesting, making things a little more dynamic, a little more flavorful as well. Really, really happy to see that. But that is the Trapland situation. Not great for several reasons, but also potential of more information and things again being a little more. They're being a little more now. Tonally, there's a lot more now to do with the Zogatal and with the Oak in particular. Always happy to see things get a little more dynamic, a little more flavorful, at least in my opinion. Overall, the situations in the tribe lands are not great. Not just with the War Jackal blockading continually again against the Desert Whisperers army of Andash, but also now with the invasion of the army of Sister Oak into Andashi lands once more in a similar place is alarming and dangerous. And seemingly fueled by something more than just, well, potentially something more complex than just a general either hatred or a thirst for vengeance. Something much more complex than just a simple description such as that. And I'm very, very excited to see how that comes forth, whether as my current Andashi player or just a player in general. Excited to see that, because it is interesting, as it is a vast majority of the things regarding Concord LARP, with lore and such, whether it be current information or past. Always interesting to me. So let's kick on to the situation in Mercante Terra, shall we? We now go into, is this the reprieve from marching boots or simply a gate to more? Another fun title. Reprieve from marching boots. To march is a kind of walk, and a gait is a description of how someone's gait. It is the way they walk. I like that as a title. Really, really nice. I always like the title names. There's a lot of good title names in these wins. Yeah, I'm really, really pleased. So, let's go. This one does also... this one only has 2 sub-articles as related to it. Also, with the Mukarem and Tribelands update, as we've updated on more situations prior, we do also have new maps showing the new territories and how things are going to be laid out going forward with the territory layout, as it would seem, assuming all that survives the playtesting period, beta testing and such. We now have the idea of territories across both the regions of Andash as a realm, and we also get an idea of the layout of territories within the region of To Esterra as well. So feel free to go onto the Concord wiki, go have a look at those maps. You'll see how everything is laid out. But for now, we shall go into the Repreve from Marching Boots. The War in To Esterra.
Is this the reprieve for marching boots, or simply the gate to more? War in To Esterra. The arrival of the Legion of the Black Heart Bear to Corinth was not one of fanfare, nor applause and cheer. Corinth, as it stands, a simple town turned military outpost, would be nothing more than the first landing of a greater war to be fought. To Esterra, one of the largest swaths of land in southern Esterra, would take time to traverse. The enemy would not wait, and neither would the Legion. Bolstered by Marines of the Liberty's Fist, the war would see Concordian forces consolidate their control over held territory, and push their way atop the plateau on which sits Madrianos. Yet they would not do so easily, met by mysteries and monsters beyond their ken with each step. The drowned present themselves yet once more as a steady threat to be faced with resolute minds. Yet again will the campaign into To Esterra ask a price of the Concord.
Yep. Yeah. The drowned are creepy. Let's not mince words on that one. The drowned are creepy, although they're supposed to much more eldritch horror in that sort of vibe. Yeah, the push is only going to get more interesting. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good information in this one, at least how I'm thinking it. This Winds article, by the way, amongst both of these two sub-articles, have so far two of my favorite like little oddly comedic moments. I'll talk about them when we go over each. I'll talk about them because I find them really, really funny. These two are also, when we get into these are also very well written, and they are very creepy, as they should be. A lot of the game information from these also comes with some new looks at the layout of how things may look statistically for the war game going forward. Again, subject to change, of course, but it gives an idea of what things might look like. So, let's run over to boots atop grass, grass atop dirt, dirt across bodies.
Boots atop grass, grass atop dirt, dirt atop bodies. The command room of Corinth was tense. There could be no better way to summarize the silent air of waiting. Captains of the Liberty's Fist, standing with crossed arms, focused on nothing but the table before them. Officers of the Legion of the Black Heart Bear, gripping the corners of the table till their knuckles turned white. The time for talking had long since finished, strategies and tactics and plans all debated and put to paper. Such things that entirely depend on a simple, single report. After what felt like years, the door to the room swung open with an abruptness deserving of the jumped responses. All eyes locked on the figure in the door, a young first-year Ritter apprentice with a grin far outmatching any seen in recent days. In his hand, a rolled-up piece of paper, clutched to his chest, as if it was the most important thing he had ever held. All waited with bated breath for the message to be relayed. All knew that the days of planning would all hinge on these words. All knew that the difficulty of the oncoming campaign would either rise or fall in the next few seconds. The boy cleared his throat, quickly unrolling the paper, and reading aloud as clearly and confidently as he could. Drowned forces ranging from La Bavenda Day down to La Drove Dormani range, in both number and scale, from dozens to hundreds. No large singular war host of thousands has been seen. Cheers and sighs of relief would fill the room in equal measure. In seconds, officers of the Legion would gather orders to be sent and call for runners. Captains of the Fist shouting for drinks, and weighed anchors in the same breath. The young apprentice would stand amazed, and a little in the way, as the engine of Concordian war spun into life before his eyes. A clap on his shoulder from a Lornemer captain, bringing him back to his senses. Bon levare, mon ami. Time to kill some weird fish things, eh? The campaign in central To Esterra would be one of strategy, caution, and pacing. With confirmation of the reaching tide moving in smaller hosts, rather than one large force, the fighting could be expected to be far smaller in scale. Such a thing would be easier to manage compared to a single great battle, particularly against an enemy as unknown as the Drowned. The tacticians of both Concordian forces did not wish to be the first to uncover the strange might of such a foe in grand combat, and would be more than happy to progress one step at a time. With orders sent and time ticking down, the Liberty's Fist would begin their slow descent down the coast of Mariprato. With a rotating schedule of Marines walking the beaches, and archers and volatile mages keeping pace in rowboats, the shore would be the hunting grounds of the Lornemer fleet. Learning from the past season's campaign, the Fist would work to keep the Drowned from entering the waters at all costs, crushing them on land to keep their ships safe in the bay, and keeping watch all through the night. Meanwhile, the Legion would march in force from Corinth to La Bavenda Day, taking the previously occupied town with a great show of force before beginning to ready their push south. The Wielder army would organise their soldiers into large groups a couple hundred strong, with supply lines and runners between each of them and the new command base in La Bavenda Day. Both the fleet and army would push south at the same pace, keeping in contact as often as feasible, forming a martial net designed to catch any foe along its path. Progress would be slow and cautious, kept at the pace of the Legion so as to allow for quick reinforcements to fronts facing particularly high numbers or difficult foes. Such manoeuvrability would be the greatest boon for the Concord, and the harshest bane for the cursed choir. Over the course of a few months, Concordian forces would finally meet a front they could no longer push. Along the edges of Ladova Domani, the swamplands south of the Madrianas Plateau, the Drowned would finally reform and gather. Slowly, but surely, the reaching tide would hold the swamps and retreat no further, preventing the Legion and Liberty's Fist from pushing yet further into To Esterra. But even still, the push left the Plateau of the Gods, and the cursed city itself which sits upon it, a reasonable and unexpected target for the Legion. While the bulk of the forces were needed to hold the line at Ladova Domani, a few hundred of its best could peel off and enter the city, their potential success entirely relying on luck and personal skill. For those continuing to fight along the border, setting up outposts and temporary military structures to hold the line became a must. The Drowned would not passively allow the Concord to take from them, and skirmishes would continue well into the end of the summer season. Reports from the Legion and Liberty's Fist bring but scant news of how the Drowned fight or live. their tendencies and skills still hidden beneath the strangeness of their sudden existence, their vocality overwhelming where before was nothing. Regardless, one thing remains true no matter who you ask. The drowned are our foe, and they can bleed. Game information. The continued campaign into central Mancante Terra reveals little about the drowned themselves, but Concordian forces make good progress in the consolidation of the land. Civil service officials, with assistance from the Liberty's Fist and the Legion of the Black Heart Bear, managed to uncover maps within Corinth that better define its territories. The Concord has secured the following 2 territories. Bosombre, containing landmarks such as the Esterran Circle, Lake Porios, and La Benelegna, follows along La Lunga Elsa, beginning at the border of Loranimer, and ending at the start of the Plateau of the Gods. Mare Prato, on the other hand, widely considered as the civil heartland of Mancante Terra, contains the townships of Loricazzo, Corinth, and La Bavenda Day. The grassy territory begins at the border of Loranimer, encompassing the majority of Lake Isabella, and ends along the swampland of La Dovedemani, also bordering the Plateau of the Gods.
So one thing that that recording did not give, which I'll read out now, is there is a readout for what the this area is like, at least with the current standing of what the currently the war updates currently give as a result of current playtest. So bear in mind, this is subject to change. So, although to be fair, if it did give these readouts and my brain just fogged out for a second there and I didn't hear it being said, doesn't matter, I'll say it anyway. So Boisembo has the following. Oh, hang on. So, it has the traits of forest, 10% casualties, I believe casualties inflicted. Yep, casualties inflicted. No change to casualties in casualties suffered. No change to anything else. No change to claim either, or anything else. No special traits, no special bonuses. It has the trait of cursed. No change to casualties inflicted. Plus 15% casualties suffered. And nothing else beyond that. That's basically what those two really do for the most part. Yeah, this is kind of a look at how these sort of things may be laid out. Again, all these numbers, all these are subject to change. Keep that in mind. Now, Meriprato. Has traits of grassland. No bonuses to casualties inflicted. No bonuses to casualties suffered. Bear in mind that's positive or negative bonus. However, it does have the trait of armies with a base strength greater than 5,000 gain an additional 750 claim bonus, or grasslands specifically. It also has coastal. No bonuses to casualties inflicted or casualties suffered. However, This territory may be targeted by fleet support actions from adjacent sea regions. This territory, right? So the idea is territories will have traits, right? So Meraprato is the coastline. So the region next to Meraprato territory specifically, that's where your support, coastal support actions taken by the fleets, naval fleets, will be able to do stuff. Which is quite cool. Alright, we now come to Soldiers of the Sunken City. Actually, before we do, so, favorite line out of this one that we just did is the Lorena Marion talking to the apprentice Ritter, and just that casual line of like, bonjour mon ami, we ready to go kiss some weird fish things. It's like it's so good. It's so good. It's so casual. It's the idea of like the very serious Ritter, like apprentice Ritter, just casual, like up spirits, jovialness, and cavalierness of a Lorena Marion in this weird situation is really funny to me. I love juxtaposition, and that's a fantastic juxtaposition. I really like that. The delivery was also fantastic. So we now come to Soldiers of the Sunken City.
Soldiers of the Sunken City. As the sun bled out behind the jagged western peaks, Emma's fingers worked with grim precision, winding her bowstring against the damp chill. The wax stung her raw fingertips, a biting reminder that her tools, and her survival, depended on vigilance. High in the archer's nest, perched leagues from the ocean, yet steeped in its brine-soaked melee, she felt the city sinking. Not into ruin, but into something far worse. Even the mountains, her only companions, seemed powerless to hold back the encroaching tide of corruption. Tolba's laboured ascent announced itself, with the clatter of his lantern and the slap of arrows spilling onto the stone floor. He stumbled through the archway, wheezing like a bellows, his bulk leaning against the frame, as if it might spare him his impending collapse. Emma bent to gather her share of the grim exchange, bundles of death in the form of fletched shafts, leaving behind soiled bandages, spoiled rations, and the fetid refuse of a garrison holding steady against inevitable decay. The nest clung to the bones of a crumbling tower, one of two bracketing a vast, hollow hall. Ritter Hildegard had called it a school for priests, judging by the gutted classrooms and monkish dormitories. Now it was the Legion's stronghold, a citadel in their invasion-turned-occupation. The city had fallen 2 weeks ago, but each night the victory was tested anew. Here, every temple was a gateway to darkness, every drain a whispering maw to the abyss below. And each night the Legion lit their fires and waged their war, a war of sodden graves and restless dead. Tolba recovered his breath, his chest heaving as the clang of steel and low murmurs echoed up the stairwell. He leaned over the edge of the parapet and waved to the bulwark below. 40 soldiers clad in heavy plate and grim resolve were assembling on the promenade. These were the ones who drew the short straw of being both skilled and unyielding. They would stand where others faltered, a living wall to hold back the tide, while Emma and her ilk rained death from above. The last pale sliver of sunlight sank below the horizon. Darkness descended in earnest, bringing with it the mist, an insidious tide that seeped into the streets, swallowing the city whole. At its worst, the fog grew so dense that the warriors below wouldn't see their own feet, much less the horrors writhing amidst their sabatons. Across the promenade, the massive temple loomed, dwarfing even Kresenberg's abbey, its shadow deepening as guttural wails began to rise from its depths. Those soaked abominations. The wails escalated. Whimpers turned to howls, howls to roars, before plunging into an unbearable silence. The bulwark moved into position, their visors slamming shut in unison, like the tolling of a funeral bell. Tolba shifted uneasily, watching as Emma laid out her arrows with meticulous care, broadheads to the left, bodkins to the right. There would be no time for fumbling when the storm broke. "I think I might stay up here tonight," Tolba mumbled, his voice a poor mask for his nerves. He leaned against the doorway, ostensibly to guard the archer, but more likely to keep the horrors at bay by distance alone. Emma wiped her wax-slick fingers on the tattered flag tied to her belt, her thoughts drifting to easier days. "Suit yourself," she muttered. Darkness always left her bitter. Below, a door across the street creaked open, spilling a sliver of flickering light. An emaciated figure slipped out, his movements jerky and unnatural. The bulwark stilled as one, their tension palpable. In the nest, only the half-drawer of Emma's bowstring and the strained whistle of Tolba's breathing broke the quiet. Then came the voice. It slithered through the fog like an eel through murky water, wet and choking, laced with drowned whispers.
"Can you hear the choir of the drowning Newman?"
Emma's broad head struck home with a crack, the man-thing's skull splitting like overripe fruit, its shattered brow erupting, leech-like tendrils writhing and screaming like dying rabbits. Before the echoes of its death faded, the temple doors burst open, disgorging a tide of corrupted flesh. The cursed choir poured forth, an unholy deluge of claws, teeth, and bloated bodies. Emma loosed another arrow, its shaft cutting clean through the mist. Her voice, soft but resolute, followed it into the dark. "We will endure." While much of the legion of the Black-Heart Bear still had to fight across central Mancante Terra, its most elite troops were dispatched with an impossible task: secure the heathen temple city of Madrianos. At the base of the Lacalades Mountains, Madrianos was a place of forgotten gods and drowned monstrosities. Through grim determination and sacrifice, these warriors have secured the city and its surroundings. But all is not well. Madrianos is cursed beyond reckoning. The last worshippers of the old Ardabazani gods died here. Then, those that remained fled this place. Then the Elsevier came, and wrought a depth of darkness unknown. The Concord has gained Madrianos, and with it, a commanding control of Mancante Terra. But now they must hold it against itself. Or, perhaps, it would be better to let it sink into a morass of bile, blood, and blasphemy. Game information. The Concord has gained the Madrianos territory. There will be additional information regarding Madrianos, its future, and its past, in the Much That Was Once Lost Winds entry. There will be decisions regarding the fighting in Madrianos for the General of the Legion of the Black-Heart Bear.
Oh, so much no. So much nope. Good choice in the voice effects, honestly. I would have done a little more pitching on it, like get some really low subharmonic, get some really good like high, almost whistling screeching in there, but that was good. That was very well delivered, very creepy. Love that. Favorite line of that, easy as you can tell, is the lone Elsevier coming out. You know, can you hear the choir of the drowning Newman? And they're just getting beamed in the head by an archer. Is really funny to me. Like just, here is this unfathomable, horrid creature, you know, jerkily moving out from the doorway. says scary line and then just gets domed. It's really funny. Horrifying, of course, but again, the juxtaposition is really funny. I just think it's really amusing. Horrid. Absolutely horrid, but amusing. Now, much like before, we do have a readout for the this territory and what it's got. I'll read it out now. Once again, subject to change. So don't take this as gospel until, and again I say gospel as in, don't take it as fact until it has been confirmed to be fact. Okay? All right. So I'll read this out. So, Plateau of the Gods. Trait. Holy Site. Artabazani Old Gods. Plus 10% casualties inflicted, obviously by the one that controls it. Or maybe in general, actually, I'd have to double check. But yeah, plus 10% casualties inflicted. Plus 5% casualties suffered. Special. I just had it. These bonuses only affect those only affects forces that follow the Artabazani Old Gods. So plus 10% casualties inflicted and plus 5% casualties suffered. That's quite brutal. Also, Holy Site, something to consider. Cursed. No bonuses at all for casualties inflicted. Plus 15% casualties suffered. No special trait. Foul flooding. No bonuses to casualties inflicted. Plus 10% casualties suffered. Does not affect drowned forces. Any non-drowned forces suffers 200 casualties if they spend a season in the territory. As said, we're going to get some more information related to Madrianos in a future Winds in the Much of Once Was Lost. We of course have the new update, the new map of Mercante Terra with its current territory division. From memory, and with this, I believe now we hold 3 of the 5 territories that make up the region of Mercante Terra. It's quite a big, it's quite a big space as we knew it would be. Yeah, this is creepy. Very creepy. They're really making the drowned much more alien, much more monstrous than the prior generic Elsevier. This is much more personal. I say personal, like it's creepier, it's weirder, they're different. They're not just, leech controlled hive mind with occasional like aberration monstrosity creatures, right? Like these are creatures, these are horrors, these are really horrifying aquatic amphibious things, right? It's much creepier. Also, Artabazani Old Gods, internal screaming. That's just my tagline for these 3 wins. Honestly, internal screaming. Just the Mukaram situation, Dryblend situation, Mercante Terra situation as per these three Greater Winds articles we've covered over this particular stream and episode. Internal screaming. Just a lot of internal screaming for me. Nope. No. But hey, as part of one of the territories we do control now, if you go and have a look at the map, we do control the Esterran Circle, aka Concord Stonehenge. We now control Concord Stonehenge, so that's fun. If you don't know what that is, there is a write-up, I believe, in last season's Winds of the World, if memory serves. If it's not there, it's somewhere in the somewhere on the Concord wiki, giving an idea of sort of stuff related to Mercante Terra. I believe it is the prior Winds of the World for the Winds of the World for the prior season. I mean, as relates to Mercante Terra, so go check that out for a greater kind of putting pieces together. We're going to get more in a future Winds article this time round for this season. It is yet to come, but that'll be interesting when we get there. Yeah, that is the last sub article. There are only two for the Mercante Terra war situation. Very creepy stuff. Legion of the Black Heart Bear, absolutely going ham. Of course, Liberty's Fist doing a hell of a push as well. Fantastic idea of keeping the drowned on land and not letting them get into the ocean or any kind of water. Very smart move, and keeping watch throughout the night. Absolutely fantastic. Doing absolute numbers. Really, really happy to see it. It's also interesting that it would appear the drowned are fighting very differently, again, to how we've seen the Elsevier generally do things. It would seem they didn't really have the numbers to fight as well. It would seem, at the very least. But we've still got 2 territories left to take. We're not done yet. Not yet. But he is hoping. Oh, yeah, that is, as it were, this particular episode. As it were, Dunzo. Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely with the Winds now having a sort of audiobook-esque readout now is fantastic. This is probably how I'm going to do things going forward, is I'm going to just let the audio play and then make comments as needed. One, it means I get to, in a much more open sense, show off the absolutely fantastic voice acting and music choice and sound effect choices for these, as I think it's absolutely fantastic. And also, it's less work for me to do overall. Yeah, that's pretty much the go for this Winds. The next 3 Winds are going to be the next 3 Winds related to the war push in the 3 other campaigns we have going at the moment. You will find them listed under the Winds of the World link on the Concord wiki under Autumn 2025. You will then see the release order that they will be coming in. I will actually give you, because I can, let me pull it up. So we've got, next time, The Last Fool of the One-Eyed King, The War in the Stein Vaults, To Prod and Poke Over and Over until finally all that is left is Wrath, The War in Windholm. What a wordy title. And then My Blade Strikes Where Lightning Does Not, The War in Risenholtz. Those 3 will be our next 3 articles to cover next time, in about a week's time. The first of these articles releasing as of time of this being live tomorrow evening, starting with The Last Fool of the One-Eyed King, The War in the Steinvelds. Yeah, three more very juicy Winds very more interesting. I say more interesting. It's not more interesting. It's just as interesting coming. Being that of worrying about the Valley, Bordevar, and of course the Greenfield. Yeah, from there, it essentially is going to be, as I said at the beginning of this, a 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. You know, all in for a total of 6 episodes covering 3 wins at a time, and then the final 2 will be 4 and 4 respectively, as it were. We'll get these all packaged and done as they come over time. Of course, these will either be streamed, as I said, streamed, recorded, or just or both. Either way, I will endeavor to get them out and done without banging my head against a brick wall too much. That is to say, trying not to burn myself out. As I say, very, very happy to be back doing this. Haven't taken a lot of time to sort of get myself in a good place, and also just more tech issues. There's always more tech issues. But like I said, there'll be a separate thing to the wins coming about that probably within the week. I'll get that recorded and out. It is going to be kind of me rambling a little bit. I'll try and have it be a little structured so it's not just a X amount of time of just a gallivanting, tangled knot all of sort of thoughts and points and such. But hopefully it will be interesting and maybe a little help to people that maybe are going through a similar thing, if not exactly the same. You know, similar points might help people to know they're not the only one going through stuff, going through mental hurdles and such. I do want to give a quick shout out, very much so, to another Concord, well, not even Concord specifically, just a Western Australian LARP podcast over on Spotify, that being Brews and Brainworms. Please go check out Brews and Brainworms. They're absolutely smashing it. James and Tim are absolutely going ham. I'm really, really, really happy to see a lot of really great success and just more people entering the Concord. Again, I keep saying Concord because they cover more than just Concord. They're covering a range of things, range of LARPs through WA. When I say a range, really Concord, Faith and Steel, but then, you know, also whatever else may be coming down the pipeline. We'll see. Yeah, go check out Brews and Brainworms again over on Spotify. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Yeah, as ever, if you at all like this, what I'm doing here, and you have any inkling to show encouragement, feel free to hit follow on this Twitch channel, and or head over to the Wanderer's Guide YouTube channel, which is linked on the page of this Twitch channel, and go subscribe and like. I don't really care for the algorithm too much. It's not why I'm doing this, but subscribing and liking and commenting, as it were, it's a way to show encouragement. It's a way to show support, in just a general sense. It makes numbers go up, which make Lizard Brain happy. That's pretty much the go. So if that's something you want to do, you want to take the quick little bit of time to do that, I would appreciate it. I will always appreciate it. Just watching is also greatly appreciated. It will always be appreciated. Because I like doing this. I've said it several times over several episodes. I do like doing this. I do enjoy it. I've taken time to kind of get us set up, more or less in a way that I can do it, with having the hurdles of, you know, several tech problems, and of course my visual disability being can be a bit of a sandbag at times. But again, I know people to assist with things that are needed, and then of course having you in chat here, whether here the entire time or partially, helping on your end to make sure that this sounds fine at the very least. All the audio is coming through fine, and that nothing is getting janky or weird. So, yeah, prepare yourselves for more winds. Prepare yourselves for the summit to come. Make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure you make good choices, make good decisions, and stay as safe as you can. We only have one more official training for Concord in the middle of March 15th to be specific. That is the last official Concord training. If you have not gotten your what's the term? Your clearance, your player clearance for the year done yet, and you would prefer not to do it at Summit, March 15th is your last chance to do it officially, or to actually do it at all, prior to Summit, aside from the day before Summit, etc. That is your last time. Please go and do it. Make sure you do it and get it done. Make sure your LARP West memberships are up to date, also incredibly important. Make sure your tickets are bought, your characters are submitted if you need to. Make sure that is done. Dot your I's and cross your T's. Very, very important. As I said, when we started covering the wins in this episode, logistics is important. Very, very important. So, with that, I'm gonna pull the pin. I'm gonna hit the big red button, and I'm gonna say goodbye. Take care. Happy trails. Happy summit prepping to all of you. I've still got plenty I need to do for myself. So, if I can find the thing to stop. There we go. All right. Y'all take care. Bye.